Listen closely. You are not like them. You have always felt it. The way your presence shifts the atmosphere, the way people react without knowing why. They call it intensity, disruption, anomaly. But you know the truth. You are different because you were built different. And now they know it too. They watch, they analyze, they gather in silence, thinking they can understand something beyond their reach. They come in the dead of night, hidden behind tinted glass and nameless intent, believing they hold the upper hand. But they don't realize power like yours does not sleep. It does not flinch. It does not fade under surveillance. This is not fear. This is recognition. You are the variable they never accounted for, the glitch in their perfect system, the energy that cannot be quantified. You are not just protected, you are untouchable. And they are scrambling, grasping at fragments of something they will never truly control. So, remember this. When they come at 3 a.m., when they park outside, when they whisper your name in rooms built to keep secrets, you are the storm they cannot contain. You are the force they cannot decipher. You are the anomaly they fear most. Opaque figures drift into position, their presence a calculated whisper against the fabric of the night. The vehicles they inhabit bear no markings, no reflections, just an absence, a void that absorbs light but gives nothing back. Their choreography is mechanical, their silence sculpted by precision rather than uncertainty. Yet for all their control, they step onto ground that remembers more than they can conceive. This place, woven with unseen forces, has held its own against intruders long before them. Their arrival is not an invasion. It is a trespass into something vast, something untouched by their design. They scan the streets and see only infrastructure, but what they miss is the pulse beneath it. This space breathes with unrecorded history, its foundations cemented not just in stone, but in defiance. The stillness surrounding them is not submission, it is awareness. The eyes they cannot detect are not hidden out of fear, but out of choice. Every shadow has already taken their measure. The watchers may believe themselves to be predators, yet the weight of what they cannot perceive makes them the hunted. What they attempt to observe has already seen them first. They act under the illusion of secrecy, but here nothing remains concealed. Their arrival was felt before their presence was noticed, their intentions dissected before their first movement. They aim to unnerve, to impose their will through quiet intimidation. But there are forces at work beyond their calculations. The strength they seek to contain is not something forged in numbers or reinforced by fear. It is something boundless, something untouched by the constructs they serve. They approach with purpose, yet leave with uncertainty, for they stand before something beyond their reach. If this truth resonates, let it be known. The unseen does not mean unguarded. Protection is not found in armor, but in the knowledge that some forces do not yield, do not fracture, do not answer to authority cloaked in anonymity. What they fear is not what they see, but what they cannot touch. Their vigilance is not control. It is proof of their powerlessness before something far greater than themselves. Those who move in silence do not seek understanding. They sow discord. Their steps are deliberate, their presence calculated, not to observe, but to unsettle. They wish to scatter doubt like seeds in the soil of certainty, hoping uncertainty will take root. Yet, they fail to recognize that the ground beneath them does not yield so easily. It is not barren, nor is it vulnerable. It is alive, fortified by unseen hands that have long ensured its resilience. What they attempt to shake is not fragile, it is immovable. Their disruption is a mere ripple upon waters too deep for them to fathom. They arrive believing themselves architects of intimidation, but their presence is an unspoken admission of failure. To watch, to linger, to hover in the shadows, these are not the actions of those in control, but of those who grasp for it. They assume their silence carries weight, that their stillness holds authority. But their waiting only confirms what has already been known. Their power is an illusion, a construct that crumbles under scrutiny. What they thought would provoke fear only highlights the depth of the force they are incapable of understanding. They have miscalculated. Strength does not fracture beneath pressure, it is forged by it. They expected weakness, openings where fear might seep through, but they encountered walls that cannot be breached. What they failed to comprehend is that resilience is not merely a trait, it is the very foundation of those they seek to unnerve. The storm they believed they could summon never arrives, for the sky above them does not bend to their will. Their presence was meant to unseat certainty, yet it only underscores their inability to touch it. They depart, not with victory, but with an unspoken defeat. Their silence is no longer a tactic, it is a confession. They have seen what they cannot control, what they cannot break, what they cannot possess. And in that realization, they retreat. They came seeking to impose fear, but all they found was the unwavering certainty of something far greater than themselves. If you feel the abundance of divine love in your heart, now is the time to share it. You can help spread God's blessings by clicking the Super Thank You button on YouTube and contributing $20 or more. This divine gift will touch not only your life, but the souls of many through this platform. Each of you has a sacred place in God's grand design, and your generosity will be the fruit of our prayers. Act now. Share your abundance to glorify His kingdom, for you were created to do even greater things in God's loving hands. May God bless you. The machine they relied on was meant to represent dominance, a vessel for their authority, a silent enforcer of their will. Dark, unmarked, and imposing, it carried their intent like an extension of their very presence. Yet, what they wielded as a tool of control crumbled beneath forces beyond their comprehension. What halted them was not mere malfunction, not an error of mechanics, but an unseen force rewriting the narrative they sought to dictate. Their vehicle, once a seamless cog in their agenda, became an inert monument to their miscalculation. The same structure they trusted to move freely now stood motionless, not as a protector of their power, but as proof of its limits. They came with a plan, but the road beneath them had its own design. Stranded within the very construct that was meant to give them advantage, they found themselves locked in place, immobilized not by barriers of steel, but by the weight of their own unraveling. No orders could restore motion, no system could override the consequence. Their vantage point dissolved, their careful positioning erased. The very air around them, once a stage for silent observation, shifted into something unwelcoming. They were no longer the watchers. They were the ones being observed. The streets, the alleys, the unseen currents of energy had turned against them. There was no need for interference, no action necessary. The natural order simply restored itself, and in that correction, their false certainty was stripped away. They arrived under the illusion of control, only to be met with a force that answered not with confrontation, but with effortless reversal. It was not a grand spectacle, not a show of force. It was a quiet inevitability, a single moment, a flaw in their perfect script, and suddenly they were the ones without answers. They will not fully grasp what happened, but they will remember it. They came believing they could dictate the terms, but their own tools refused to obey. The silence they once used as a weapon swallowed them whole, reducing their authority to nothing more than an echo fading into the distance. The distance between them and safety stretched endlessly, an expanse that refused to offer them reprieve. What once felt like command over the landscape had become their greatest miscalculation. The night, once perceived as an ally, now swallowed them whole, indifferent to their presence. Their careful preparation meant nothing against the weight of their sudden insignificance. The reversal was swift, absolute. What they thought they controlled had turned unrecognizable. They were not bound by chains or walls, yet movement itself became a battle. The absence of direction, the void of certainty, tightened around them with an unspoken finality. The same world they sought to survey had become a labyrinth where their own rules held no power. Your moment is now. Subscribe, and let's achieve greatness together. They had anticipated resistance in forms they could counteract, but nothing had prepared them for an enemy that did not take form at all. There was no adversary to engage, no force to subdue, only the suffocating realization that their presence did not shape this space. The strategies they once relied on, maps, protocols, tools, dissolved into irrelevance. The air was thick, heavy in a way no instrument could quantify. Their commands, their movements, their attempts to assert dominance carried no weight here. What they had brought with them, the mechanisms meant to ensure control, had already begun to fail. Their lights flickered, their voices met only silence. Even time itself seemed to resist their intrusion, stretching unbearably as if rejecting their grasp. The disruption was not external, it was the unraveling of certainty. Their reliance on machinery, on signals and circuits, had blinded them to the reality that some spaces do not conform to human design. They did not encounter aggression. They met an unshakable truth. The ground beneath them was not hostile, yet it refused to recognize them. Their tools, crafted with precision, were reduced to meaningless artifacts. Batteries emptied, devices faltered, and their lifelines to control crumbled as if the very energy they relied upon was drained from their hands. It was not sabotage, nor was it coincidence. It was the quiet inevitability of stepping beyond the limits of their understanding. Take the leap, subscribe now, and let's build greatness together. They did not retreat by choice. They were dismissed. Their presence had been a disturbance, one that the very fabric of this place absorbed and erased without effort. They entered believing themselves unseen architects of order, but they left with the knowledge that some forces will never bend to their will. The silence that followed them was not merely the absence of sound, it was the undeniable proof that their power had never truly existed here. Stop. Breathe. For too long, you've walked unnoticed, suppressing the raw intensity that fractures illusions and bends reality itself. They called it too much, labeled it unnerving, when all along it was their own fragility that cracked under the weight of your presence. They mistook your magnitude for menace, your clarity for chaos, because they could not comprehend what does not fit within their carefully built constructs. That is why this gathering was forged, beyond secrecy, beyond mortal limitations. Not a mere collective, but a citadel of those who wield reality as both weapon and canvas. Here, there is no need to explain what the world has already tried and failed to define. This is not a space for hesitant seekers. It is a war room where destiny is dissected and reshaped by hands that do not tremble. Every week, the chosen convene, not in pursuit of understanding, but in command of it. No watered-down rituals, no diluted knowledge, only the kind of truths that slip between the cracks of history, erased from records and feared by those who pretend to rule. The Watchers whisper, but their surveillance is a futile effort against those who do not operate within their system. The encrypted archives hold more than knowledge. They hold the weight of suppressed realities, evidence of a power that refuses to be silenced. The link below is not an invitation, it is confirmation, a signal to those who no longer seek permission to exist as they were meant to. Their downfall was not coincidence, it was inevitability. What they trusted as an extension of their will turned against them, revealing the hollowness of their dominion. The machine was never merely transport, it was a declaration of control, a moving fortress meant to carry their authority into spaces they had no right to claim. But what they had constructed as a tool of influence collapsed in silent defiance, rendering their purpose null. Every wire, every lens, every meticulously placed mechanism designed for precision became a monument to their own blindness. It was not sabotage, nor was it chance. It was the quiet verdict of forces they failed to account for, the dismantling of arrogance through the simplest of means, stagnation. Their strategy relied on movement, yet motion was stripped from them entirely, leaving only an inescapable truth. They had never been in control. They did not simply break down, they were left behind. Their steel-clad confidence, so carefully upheld, crumbled beneath the weight of their own overreach. Their vessel became a prison, not because of external force, but because of their own ignorance. They came expecting to monitor, to dictate, to unsettle. Instead, they were cut off, adrift in a space where their presence held no significance. What they had relied upon abandoned them, not by accident, but by decree. And in that moment, they came face to face with the same realization they sought to impose upon others. Power does not belong to those who merely claim it. It belongs to those who command it effortlessly. And so, they remained, not as threats, but as remnants of a failed attempt, swallowed by the silence that would forever echo their insignificance. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. Like a house built on sand, their foundation was never meant to last. They thought themselves the storm, but they were only clouds, gathering, darkening, ready to unleash destruction. Yet the moment they arrived, the winds shifted, and suddenly, they were the ones caught in the whirlwind. They played a game they thought they controlled, moving in secret, calculating every step. But the battle was never theirs to win. See, when you walk in divine favor, when you carry the weight of something greater than yourself, opposition doesn't stand. It crumbles. They believed they were architects of control, weaving plans with meticulous precision, setting the stage for their dominance. But what good is a blueprint when the ground refuses to hold the structure? What use is strategy when the battlefield does not belong to them? They came with intentions to unsettle, to dismantle, to impose their will upon something they could never own. And yet, it was not you who faltered. It was them. Because power, real power, is not taken, not manipulated, not crafted by human hands. It is given, and they were never chosen to wield it. Feel what it truly means to be chosen. You're not alone on this journey. If deep down you feel that you're chosen, you've come to the right place. Take the next step in connecting with us, unlocking exclusive content, and receiving the support you need on your spiritual path by clicking the Join button. This isn't just about being part of a community, it's about accessing unique insights that can transform your life and bring you closer to your divine calling. Make the choice today and walk this journey with us. Claim your place among the chosen ones. Join now. They called their movement strategic, but strategy means nothing when the very air around you shifts against your favor. The tools they relied on, machines, networks, surveillance, failed them not by accident, but by decree. They sent messages that were never received, signals that fell into silence, commands that had no weight. They moved like men who believed the ground beneath them was solid, only to realize too late that they were sinking. And the more they fought, the faster they fell. That's what happens when you war against something beyond your understanding. That's what happens when you step into a space that was never meant for you. They did not stumble because they were weak. They fell because they refused to see what was in front of them. They placed their faith in control, in human might, in systems and strategies. But all of it was built on nothing. And when the weight of divine authority pressed down, their false foundation could not hold. Their fall was not dramatic, not loud, it was undeniable. It happened in real time, slipping through their fingers before they could even comprehend what was happening. They sent for reinforcements that never arrived. They called for aid that did not come. The very shadows they moved in turned against them. And what they thought was power revealed itself to be an illusion. But hear me now, this was never about them. This was about you. Because when you are chosen, when your steps are ordered, no force on this earth can shake what has already been established. No system, no weapon, no plan can stand against the decree written over your life. Their collapse was not coincidence, it was confirmation. It was the manifestation of a law older than time itself. What is built without divine authority will always fall. What is sent to harm the chosen will never reach its target. So stand firm. Do not be shaken. What tried to unsettle you has been unsettled. What came to trap you has been caught in its own snare. And what once looked like opposition was only proof that you are moving exactly as you were meant to. They thought they could break you, but all they did was reveal their own weakness. And now, as they stand in the ruins of their own making, they will finally understand. The battle was never theirs to win. Fear feeds on the absence of control, and now they stand at its mercy. Those who sought to dictate outcomes find themselves ensnared in the very forces they dismissed. They arrived with a plan, confident in their reach, believing they moved unseen, untouched. But there are realms where intent alone is not enough, where unseen forces do not bow to mortal ambition. They miscalculated, assuming that precision and preparation would shield them from consequence. But energy follows intent, and every move they made only tightened the snare they had unknowingly set for themselves. There was no need for resistance. They were dismantled by something far greater than obstruction. They were swallowed by inevitability. Their tools, crafted to infiltrate, had no defense against forces older than their comprehension. They were not just intercepted, they were neutralized before their efforts could take root. The unraveling was swift, merciless. Strength, when built on deception, crumbles without warning. They entered believing themselves untouchable, only to be confronted with their own irrelevance. There was no battle, no grand opposition, just the silent erosion of everything they relied upon. Their presence, once calculated, became aimless. Their confidence turned to hesitation. Their unity, so carefully maintained, splintered under the weight of failure. Distrust crept between them, unspoken but undeniable. Accusations festered in the void, left by their diminishing control. The machinery they depended on faltered. The signals they relied upon dissolved into static. What began as a carefully orchestrated operation had unraveled into chaos of their own making. They came seeking control, but left as shadows of their former certainty, remnants of a plan that never truly held power to begin with. They thought their structure was unshakable, that their presence alone was enough to disrupt, to impose, to dominate. Yet without resistance, they unraveled. It was not force that dismantled them, not confrontation, but their own fragility, exposed by their miscalculations. They moved with precision, but precision means nothing when the foundation itself is flawed. Their confidence, a mere construct, fractured beneath the weight of their own illusions. They relied on strategy, on tools, on rehearsed control, never realizing that these were the very things that would betray them. Their unity dissolved into discord, their certainty shattered into doubt. They sought to impose will upon something beyond their comprehension, and in doing so, they invited their own failure. What they faced was not opposition, but inevitability. The collapse was not an act of resistance, but an act of nature. They mistook silence for an invitation, mistook stillness for an opening, yet all along, they were walking into the exact fate they had set in motion. Their presence carried no authority here, only the weight of their own arrogance pressing down upon them. They had assumed a position of power, only to discover that power had never belonged to them. Their downfall was not a struggle. It was a certainty written before their arrival. No hand needed to be raised, no interference required. The unraveling was self-inflicted, a consequence of standing against forces that do not bow, do not waver, do not recognize the limitations of human schemes. Their attempts to recover, to recalibrate, to regain control only emphasized their helplessness. The very tools they wielded became dead weight in their hands, their carefully laid plans reduced to remnants of a failed ambition. They had come believing themselves prepared, but preparation is meaningless when the ground beneath you refuses to hold your steps. Their downfall was neither loud nor dramatic. It was complete. The more they struggled, the clearer their failure became. They came seeking control and left with nothing, trapped in the stark realization that there are forces that do not respond to power plays or calculated intent. What they sought to contain, to dismantle, to suppress, stood untouched. Their defeat was not an accident. It was the only possible outcome. Every desperate action, every flashing signal and fractured command only deepened their realization of the miscalculation they refused to acknowledge. They had built their strategy upon the illusion of control, yet now found themselves suffocating beneath its absence. Their failure was not just logistical, it was absolute. The walls of certainty they had so carefully constructed had crumbled, leaving them exposed to a truth they were never prepared to face. The technology they wielded as an extension of their authority had become obsolete in an instant. What was meant to be a tool of dominance now stood as evidence of their misjudgment, a testament to the fragility of power when it is built on arrogance. Their undoing was inevitable, woven into the very fabric of their own design. No external force needed to intervene. Their downfall was self-inflicted, a direct consequence of standing against something beyond their comprehension. They came cloaked in silence, expecting to dismantle what they could never touch. The road beneath them did not bend to their will, nor did the forces they sought to suppress. The shadows they tried to command swallowed them whole, their carefully laid plans unraveling before their eyes. What was meant to be a swift and precise execution collapsed into disorder, each attempt to salvage their mission only quickening their demise. They had not anticipated resistance in the form of stillness, had not foreseen that their own presence would be the very thing that undid them. Their strength, which had always been borrowed, deserted them at the moment they needed it most. They arrived as enforcers, yet left as remnants of a failed pursuit. The world they thought they moved through unnoticed had already passed judgment. What they sought to disrupt remained untouched, unmoved by their interference. What they attempted to suppress rose higher, fortified by the very opposition meant to break it. The energy they tried to contain surged beyond their reach, leaving them with nothing but the wreckage of their own ambition. Their designs could not penetrate the force that stood before them, and their failure was not merely acknowledged, it was absorbed, reflected, and returned to them in full.